This lesson is for XEI 202. We are going to be solving equations in the form x plus a equals b, where a and b are whole numbers or they could be decimals as well. So in the first two examples, I have an equation in this form, x plus a equals b. You'll notice that a and b here are just two decimals. So we could also see whole numbers here as well. So we're going to try to solve for x. We're going to get x by itself. So there's a couple ways that you probably have already done a question like this in the past. One way is you could have asked yourself, what number plus 3.9 will equal 17.6? Now this is kind of harder to do because you've got decimals here, just to be able to think of a whole number, because if I were to say, x plus 2 equals 4, what number plus 2 would give me 4? I'm sure all of you could say, oh, that number has to be 2. Well, here it's a little bit trickier. We've got a decimal, and so it's not going to be quite as easy. So what we're going to do is take the opposite sign here. 3.9 has a positive sign, and we're trying to get rid of the 3.9 to move it to the other side. To do that, we're going to subtract 3.9 on both sides. Okay? When I subtract 3.9 on both sides, I can cross that 3.9 out because I've just canceled it from the left side. And all that's left on the left side is this x. I'm going to bring that right back down. I'm going to also bring down my equal sign, and I do the calculation on the right hand side here, this 17.6 minus 3.9, and I get 13.7. You're going to notice how I'm showing my answer. One, I'm boxing my work, and I'm also writing x equals the number. I don't want to just write 13.7 on my worksheet and circle that. I want to write x equals, because we're finding the unknown quantity, right? We talked about how x is an unknown quantity. Well, now we just found it, and we want to define it. So we write x equals 13.7. Okay, now in number 2, you guys could pause the video and try this one on your own. You're going to isolate x as well. All right, I'll work this out too. So I'm going to subtract here, because if I want to get x by itself and I see a positive sign here, I'm going to subtract 4.1 to the other side. These 4.1s will now cancel. I'm going to bring my x down, my equal sign down as well. So I have x equals. So don't forget this really important part. Now in my calculator on the other side, I have 3.2 minus 4.1. You need to make sure you write the same order that you see it appear in your equation, and show the work too so that you know what to type in your calculator. And I end up with negative 0.9. Okay, I box my answer and I have it in the form x equals. Now you will also see some word problems as well. So here I've got a word problem. Mr. Wallach wants to buy a horse to ride to school. The horse he wants will cost him $2,500, and he has already saved up $1,175. How much additional money does he need to save up to buy the horse? Okay, I know most of you are going to want to just take $2,500 and subtract $1,175. Now, you would get the correct answer, but this is not the correct work, and the skill that we're working towards here is different than what you're trying to do. So I want to put it in the form of this equation, x plus a equals b. It will be very obvious to me if you don't write your equation in this form, and if you didn't watch the video, because then you're not going to get your equation in this form. You'll just probably subtract the numbers like I showed before. So make sure you're writing it in this form. Okay, so the total cost that it's going to cost in this $2,500, we're going to write that on the other side of what we have it equaling to. Okay, the expression on the left hand side, this x plus a, x is going to stand for the amount of money he needs to save up. So it's the amount he still needs, because we don't know what that quantity is, so we call it x. And a is the amount that he already has. So he already has $1,175. So this expression here is what I would want to see on your paper. I want to see x plus 1,175 equals 2,500, and then you're going to go ahead and solve. Now when you solve for x, of course you're going to subtract the 1,175 on both sides, and you are left with x equaling $1,325. Now that, again, that would be the same amount of money that you would have gotten if you had just subtracted the two numbers, but we really need to see this equation, because once we start getting into more difficult word problems, you need to have this basis and be able to show your work for these word problems. Alright, finally we have an extension skill in this section, and in this skill you're going to be solving equations that are not of the form x plus a equals b. So for example, in number 4, I don't see x plus a number equaling a different number. Now I see x divided by a number equaling a number. So there's two ways again that I can think of this. I can ask myself, what number divided by 12 will give me the number 5? If you know that answer right away, great. If not, here's what you're going to do. We're dividing x by 12, right, to end up getting 5. Well, I want to take the opposite of that. I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to think backwards and I'm going to say I'm going to multiply by 12 to get that out of there. So the 12 divided by the 12 cancels out, just like 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. They cancel one another out. So I'm left with just 1x equaling 5 times 12 on the other side, and I get the number 60. Okay? Okay, now the nice thing about these problems is that I can always check my answer. If I plug the number 60 back in for this x originally up here, so I'm just going to plug it in right here, and I check 60 divided by 12, does that equal 5? I get the same thing on both sides, and that checks off, so I know I got the right answer. In number 5, this time we have negative 4 times x equaling 28. Remember, if there's no operation listed in between, it's assumed that it's multiplication, like we talked about in XCI 201. So to isolate this x here, to get x by itself, I need to divide the negative 4 to get rid of it on the left side. When I divide that, I'm left with x equaling negative 7. This would be my final answer here, and I want to just double check this again. So don't just write negative 7, write x equals negative 7, and let's double check our answer by plugging negative 7 back in to this original expression. So I have negative 4 times negative 7, does that equal 28? I do get a positive 28 equals 28, so this does check off, and that's how I know I got the question correct. Alright, nice job. Now get started on the skill sheets.